Madam Hindeola looked at Taiwo with a gentle smile. "They're almost here, one more push," she said encouragingly. And with that final effort, Taiwo, after 2 days of labor, finally gave birth to her twins. The air was soon filled with the sweet sound of their newborn cries. Now, before we get deeper into the story, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. To the newcomers, welcome, and to those who've been around, welcome back. Let's dive back in. The first thing to know about Madam Hindeola's salon is that it had strict rules. No personal combs, no boys, and no men were ever allowed inside. Madam Hindeola's salon was the most popular and thriving in the village of Ararawemi, but it hadn't always been that way. In the beginning, her shop was an unfinished building, and she struggled, braiding just a couple of heads each week to make ends meet. But her life changed drastically after 2 major losses: the death of her unborn children and the passing of her abusive, unfaithful husband. Despite his cruelty, Madam Hindeola didn't celebrate her husband's death. Instead, she disappeared from the village in mourning for 2 long years. When she returned, she set up her salon, which quickly became a massive success. Within a year, her business flourished while others struggled. Strangely, it seemed the village women grew obsessed with their looks, sparking tension among the men, who became resentful and demotivated. What was more odd is that most crimes were now being committed by women. Fights, thefts, and even stories of women robbing or assaulting men were not uncommon. As a result, you would hardly see a man walking alone or keeping late-night hours. The one thing the victims, who were all men, said about their attackers was that the women were astonishingly beautiful and mesmerizing. No one questioned how Madam Hindeola managed the salon alone and why it was only her business that was doing well. It was, however, evident that she worked tirelessly, braiding hair for 20 to 100 clients daily, washing and styling for about 30 customers, and still cleaning the shop herself by the end of the day. Her salon had 2 rooms, a reception, where she washed her customers' hair, and an inner room for braiding and styling. The salon was filled with the scent of incense and decorated with ancient artifacts like clay pots and paintings. Madam Hindeola had won many village competitions for her skill. The only person who came close was Madam Tayemi, though she only styled her daughter's hair and was uninterested in competing. Madam Hindeola's talent allowed her to enforce her unique rules, including the ban on personal combs. People were willing to follow her every rule just to experience her magical touch. One day, a woman walked into the salon to get her hair done. Madam Hindeola, the salon owner, a big and bossa-looking woman with a very bushy manner of hair, was busy washing another customer's hair but still welcomed the woman and asked her to take a seat with the other waiting customers. The new customer sat down and untied her scarf to reveal a thick, bushy, and uncombed head of hair. She immediately took out her comb and began to brush her hair. "What are you doing?" Madam Hindeola cried out in shock, glancing at the woman who continued combing her hair, completely unaware of the alarm she was causing. Confused, the customer replied, "What do you mean? You're new here, aren't you?" Madam Hindeola asked, frowning. "You can't just use your own comb in my salon." The customer looked around, surprised and doubtful, and replied, "You must be joking. My hair is delicate. I can't just use any comb." But Madam Hindeola was not having it. "Get out," she shouted, soap suds dripping from her hands as she was washing another customer's hair. She didn't give the woman another chance. She hauled her out the door without a second thought. The woman, frustrated and embarrassed, gathered her things and left. She couldn't believe what had just happened. She needed her hair done for an important meeting, but now she was forced to look for another salon. Yet, everywhere she went, people kept directing her back to Madam Hindeola's salon, which only added to her frustration. Finally, after hours of searching, she came across an old woman picking beans by the roadside. "Good evening, Ma," she greeted politely. "Evening, my dear," the woman replied, sweetly. "How can I help you?" The woman explained her situation, saying, "I have an important meeting tomorrow with my future in-laws, and I really need my hair done." The old woman smiled knowingly and gave her directions to another hairdresser. "Take a motorbike taxi," she advised nicely. "You'll get there faster." Grateful for the help, the woman took a bike and headed to the location described. Soon, she arrived at a small, humble hut. Outside, a woman was braiding a young girl's hair, while nearby, a young man who looked like the girl tended to a fire, fanning the flames under a boiling pot. They were twins. Finally, the woman had found a place to get her hair done and hoped this time she would be treated with a little more understanding. A few meters away, pots filled with various plants stood out. The woman recognized aloe vera and scent leaves among the many herbs growing in the pots. "Chidera," the woman said, parting her daughter's hair with a comb. "Just because I'm your mother doesn't mean I'll keep braiding your hair if you don't listen to me. I still don't understand why this competition matters so much to you." "Mummy, I'm hungry, and I'm tired of eating beans all the time," complained Chidi, who was tending the fire nearby. "Chidi," their mother said firmly, still focused on Chidera's hair, "behave yourself." "Mummy," Chidi continued, "if you would just braid a few people's hair each day, we wouldn't have to eat beans every day. People keep coming, but you keep turning them away. Why?" Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. It was the lady Madam Hindeola had thrown out of her salon. "Mummy, be gentle," cried Chidera as her mother tugged on her hair. A lady had come to the door, interrupting them. "Good evening," greeted the lady politely. She looked at Mama Chidera. "I really need my hair done, Ma. I'll pay well so you don't have to eat beans tonight." She smiled at Chidi, who looked hopefully at his mother. "Mummy, please," he begged. "You can finish Chidera's hair later." "No," she snapped. "Please, Ma," the lady pleaded, pointing to her messy hair. "I need your help." "I said no," Mama Chidera replied sternly. "Mummy, please," Chidi urged, his voice full of frustration. "I'm tired of beans, and we need money for school. Our uniforms are faded, and exams are coming up. How will we pay if we don't have any money?" "Mama Angiola helps us with sales from her beans," Mama Chidera said firmly. "Mummy," Chidera added, "Mama Angiola keeps complaining about the poor harvest this season. We need another way to make ends meet." Mama Chidera glanced at the lady, seeming to consider her request. "Please, Ma," the lady continued, "just this once." "Mummy, please," Chidi begged again. "Just this once, and we won't ask again." Mama Chidera hesitated. "And when will I finish Chidera's hair?" she asked worriedly. "I'll wait," Chidera said happily, standing up. Mama Chidera sighed, looking between her children and the lady, who all looked at her with hopeful eyes. "Do you have your comb?" she asked. "You can use yours," the lady offered. Mama Chidera frowned. "No. You must have your own comb. Your comb or nothing." Quickly, the lady pulled out a set of combs of various sizes. Chidera got up, and the woman handed the combs to Mama Chidera before sitting down on the stool. "Bring me the aloe vera," Mama Chidera instructed. Chidi handed her a pot, and she sliced a leaf. Squeezing the gel onto her hands, she murmured softly as she spread it evenly. She placed her hands on the lady's hair, pausing as if the effort was intense. "Mummy, are you okay?" Chidera asked, noticing her mother's discomfort. "I'm fine," she replied, then began braiding the hair. It took quite a while, but as evening fell, the job was done. "Oh my goodness," the lady exclaimed, admiring her new hair in awe. She reached for her purse and counted out some money. Chidera and Chidi exchanged gleeful looks. "You should open your own salon," she suggested. "That Madam Hindeola is so rude. She kicked me out this morning because I had my own comb." "You've been to her salon?" Mama Chidera asked, shocked. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't think it mattered." The lady extended the money to Mama Chidera. "No, I can't accept it," Mama Chidera snapped. "If I had known you were coming from her salon, I would have never agreed to braid your hair. Leave now." "But, Mummy," Chidi and Chidera cried in unison. "I said, leave us alone." Mama Chidera shouted, storming into the hut. The lady stood there, confused, looking at the children and the money still in her hand. "Just give it to us," Chidi said quickly. "She and Madam Hindeola don't get along." They've been rivals for years. Give us the money, and I'll explain it to her. Mummy will be angry, Chidera muttered. Shush, Chidi replied, sharply. I'll handle it. You still need to get your hair done for the competition tomorrow. Take it, the lady sighed, setting the money down. This is all too strange. She walked away briskly. Why does Mummy avoid Madam Hindeola so much? Chidera asked. I don't know. Maybe it's jealousy, Chidi replied. She never talks about it. I still need to get my hair done, Chidera murmured. Mummy! She shouted. Aren't you doing my hair for the competition? She marched into the hut, only to return in tears. What's wrong? Chidi asked, concerned. Mummy says her hands hurt, Chidera explained in tears. She won't be able to braid my hair, and the competition is tomorrow. Chidi exclaimed. He went into the hut and found their mother with her hands soaking in cold water. Mummy, what's wrong? He asked, worried. She'd never complained about hand pain before. It's nothing, she assured him, then turned to Chidera. I'm sorry, my love, but you'll have to wait until the next competition. But Mummy! Chidera screamed. This competition means everything to me. I was ready to beat Jumibi this year. Chidera's mum sighed. I'm sorry. Mummy. Chidera, it's all right, said her brother. When has Mummy ever refused to do your hair? Chidera tried to argue, but Chidi stopped her. Let's go fetch water and let Mummy rest, okay? Come on. Though she wanted to resist, Chidi led her outside. But what am I supposed to do now? Chidera muttered, frustrated. Quiet, Chidi whispered sharply. We're going to Madam Hindeola's shop to get your hair done. But Mummy said. Do you want to win this competition or not? He interrupted. So, dressed and pretending to fetch water, they headed to Madam Hindeola's salon. Now, it's important to know that Chidi and Chidera, though they were a boy and a girl, looked almost identical. The only real difference was Chidi's afro. Sometimes, Chidi would braid his hair and pretend to be Chidera, fooling nearly everyone. If their mother had shared her history with Madam Hindeola, the twins might have thought twice before going to her shop. When they arrived, they found it closed. The closed sign swung as though recently hung. Maybe we should go back, Chidera suggested nervously. Mummy wouldn't like me going to someone else. And you'll regret it if you don't get your hair done and lose the competition, Chidi replied, knocking insistently. I want you to beat Ifema, wipe that smug look off her face and her useless brother. Chidera was hesitant, but Chidi knocked again. Have you noticed the change in attitude of all these girls since they started getting their hair done? Chidi asked, concerned. Repeated Chidera. Raelia almost stabbed you. I thought you said she liked you. Inside, Madam Hindeola heard the knock. Initially irritated, she opened the door and was surprised. Ah, twin girls, she exclaimed, her frown turning into a smile. He's my brother, Chidera clarified with a grin. No boys allowed, Madam Hindeola said, curtly. Chidi elbowed Chidera. I'm a girl, he insisted, raising his voice. Please, we just want to get our hair done. Madam Hindeola's smile widened. All right, come in. I know exactly what style you want. Without waiting, she pulled them inside, shut the door, and started to sing. My hands will weave a magic flare. When I'm done, all will stop and stare. Men will chase, and women too. For beauty only my hands bring true. Once your hair's in my embrace, you'll shine with style and endless grace. Trust in me, my dears, and I'll make you shine beyond your peers. Chidi and Chidera sat, listening to her sing as she prepared. She then beckoned Chidera to follow her to a back room. Chidera glanced at Chidi, uncertain, but he nodded, seeming relaxed. He lay back on the bench, lulled by the shop's heavy incense. Barely 10 minutes later, Chidi woke up with a pounding headache. Chidera, he called, feeling uneasy. We're almost done. Chidera called from the back room, her voice full of excitement. You'll love it. Chidi, disoriented, fell off the bench and began to retch uncontrollably. He did this 5 times in quick succession. After a few minutes, he managed to stop just as Chidera emerged, her hair beautifully braided, making her look like a goddess. Your turn, Madam Hindeola said, eyeing Chidi on the floor with no concern, launching into her song again. What are you doing on the floor? Chidera asked, admiring her hair in the mirror. She spun around. Do you like it? It looks amazing, Chidi said, composing himself. Let's go. Aren't you getting your hair done? Madam Hindeola asked. No, thank you, Chidi replied quickly, grabbing Chidera's hand and pulling her out of the shop. What's wrong? Chidera asked, as Chidi practically dragged her away. There's something strange about that shop, he muttered. I wish we hadn't gone. Stop talking nonsense, Chidera said, flagging down a motorcycle taxi. They both climbed on and rode home. Chidera kept admiring her hair until they entered their compound, where she suddenly screamed in pain and would have collapsed if Chidi hadn't caught her. What's wrong? He asked, panicked. My head, she cried. It hurts so much. Mummy! Chidi shouted, fear in his voice as he struggled to support Chidera. Their mother emerged from the hut, weak and holding a lamp. But there was something terrifying about her hands. They were covered in boils and sores. What happened? She gasped. Bring her inside. I'm too weak to help out here. As Chidi carried Chidera into the hut, the lamp's light fell on her hair, revealing boils and sores growing along her scalp. They were the same kind on their mother's hands. Who did your hair? Their mother cried, dropping the lamp. You went to Madam Hindeola. Mummy, we didn't mean any harm. Chidi stammered as they entered the hut. Their mother, now driven by her daughter's condition, grabbed some leaves from her small garden. Grind these, she ordered, voice trembling. Tell me everything. Why would you go to her? But before Chidi could respond, Chidera let out a piercing scream and fell silent. Mama Chidera shook her, desperate. Chidera, she screamed. Chidera. There was no response. Her mother's energy drained instantly. She fell back on the bed. Chidi shook his sister, sobbing, while looking at his mother. He was so confused. Could she be dead? Madam Hindeola, he cried. You'll pay for this. No, his mother said weakly, her voice barely a whisper. Go to Mama Angiola. Mama Angiola. Chidi repeated, confused and desperate, his face wet with tears. Quickly, and with that, his mother, too, went silent. Mummy, he cried, shaking her, but she didn't respond. Mama Angiola, Chidi whispered, looking around, deep in thought. His mother had mentioned her, so there must be something Mama Angiola could do. But how could a bean farmer help him? Without another thought, he dashed out of the house